boring, interesting than I could have ever imagined.
Oh, terrible.
Ooh, terrible. All right, I'm glad I'm amongst my peers. Oh, man. Guys, come on. This is great stuff. No, okay. Okay.
I do have a high-pressure job.
Amazing. There's a lot of gravity to that joke.
Yes.
All right, so, terrible. So these are some amazing topics. So I'd love to learn a little bit, more about you. How did you get this start? What made you interested in, deep sea to space?
Yeah.
I mean, things that don't really seem related. So how did you even dive into all this?
Well, when I was a kid, I was very interested in astronomy. I got my first view of those 4 moons of Jupiter. I was probably in 5th grade, and our neighbor had a really big telescope and invited us all to have a look. And it was kind of mind-blowing, I gotta say. And that convinced me, man, I really want to do this for a living. So when I grow up, I want to do this. And so in undergraduate and graduate school, I pursued Earth and planetary science. And then when I had the chance, I applied to work on this Arizona State University job, which built an instrument and sent it to Mars. That was kind of a lifelong dream to work on something like that. Then when that project was over and I was ready to look for another job, there was an opening at Mbari advertised in a newspaper. You guys remember what those are? They're like paper things. This was in '95, and they were looking for somebody who had experience with satellite imagery to look at ocean color from space. And I thought, oh, I've got some of that. It sounds really fun. And I'd be looking at the Earth's ocean, not Mars. So I applied, and I luckily got it. And I've always been interested in the oceans, even though I never saw the ocean until I was 19. And it's part of Earth and planetary science. So as a software engineer, I find you can work on some really cool applications if you're working at the right place, because everybody needs software. And if you're working with geologists and earth scientists and planetary science, you got it made.
Well, that's perfect. That's a great transition to our next topic of, tell me a little bit more about your team. So, international team, I mean, obviously there's no icebergs in the Monterey Bay, so clearly you're working with individuals from all around the world. So, geologists, physical oceanographers, so walk me through, what does your team look like?
So it depends on the project. So at Mbari, I've been really lucky to work on several really exciting, interesting projects. Some of them involve biology, some geology, some physical oceanography. I'd say a good example is a Monterey Canyon experiment that we did several years ago, where we deployed instruments that measure water speeds during these underwater avalanches in Monterey Canyon. Really interesting, and it had an international team, including members from China, from Great Britain, and elsewhere. So it was really fun and exciting to work with that team, both on board the ship and on shore. So many of our projects have that sort of international flavor to them.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's really fun.
I mean, I'm learning all these amazing vocab words, like underwater avalanche, like things you don't even think about, right? So the next question I had was just a really cool thing that you breezed over in today's conversation of a gravity slingshot.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what? That is the coolest word. What is that?
So the idea is, if an object is approaching another object in space, gravity mutually attracts them, right? You'll see the effect much more on the smaller object, but it will get sped up as it falls toward, say, Mars. The spacecraft approaching Mars will go faster and faster because Mars gravity accelerates it. And if you aim just right, the spacecraft can whip around Mars and be boosted by Mars gravity and Mars orbital motion around the sun to kind of whip it like a sling and pick up speed to go on to your next destination.
So cool. I mean, things you don't really think about. That's wild.
Yeah.
All right, so before we open it up to the audience for questions, my last question, and I always like to kind of end the facilitated Q&A with the guest speaker with, this question of, what are next steps? Is there any top secret Mbari projects you can tell us? What's the insider scoop on your next big scientific
Well, Jessica would kill me if I revealed any top secret information, so I'm going to just keep my mouth shut on that one. No, there's several projects I'm working on now. One is using aerial drones to survey the ocean surface from a height of 200 feet. What can we see about the biology and how it's changing in certain selected areas in Monterey Bay? So currently we use a color Sony camera, and we can see things like sharks, jellies, kelp, plankton, ocean color variations. We also will plan to use a multispectral camera, kind of like the infrared mapper on Galileo and Europa Clipper, but intended to discriminate between different kinds of plankton in the ocean. So that's a fun project.
Wow, that's so great. I can't wait to see what comes out of that. So he'll be back for another Naturalist Night to give us another update on that.
Okay.
All right, so as far as audience questions go,